Hey guys, so I have my last recent reads video of 2020 and maybe ever. I don't know if I'm going to be doing these in the future. I'm definitely switching back to monthly wrap-ups. So I'm going to share my last reads of 2020. It still has 5 books in this set, which kind of worked out perfectly because that's how I'd been doing my recent reads videos. And pretty much all these books were ones I really enjoyed, but I'll go least favorite to favorite. I just keep mixing it up, but that's the way I want to do it today. So coming in at the bottom of the list was one that honestly was a bit of a disappointment, and that's One Day in December by Josie Silver. So I had heard such good things about this book. I really wanted to read it in December before Christmas because I know it kind of starts off around Christmas, and I knew the idea of it was that this guy and this girl were in love with each other. Over the span of 10 years, she saw him first, but her best friend ended up dating him. And so it's like their unrequited love story. And that sounds, in theory, like something I would be really interested in reading. But I don't know where it was. It lost me somewhere along the way where our main character, male character, is Jack. And I just ended up not liking him. Like, I loved our female main character. I thought she was wonderful. Yes, she made decisions that I wouldn't have made, but like I totally understand why she made the decisions that she did, and I really rooted for her. But I just started not liking Jack, and you can't really not like one part of the love couple because then you just don't like them as a couple. And when they finally get together in the end, as love stories do, I just didn't care. I wasn't like anxiously awaiting them to finally be together. Like, I genuinely just was like, eh. So unfortunately, that was a letdown for me. Right, and then all the rest are 4-star reads and then a 4.5-star read. So really nothing negative to say from this point on. I'm going to talk about now Legendborn. This is something different than anything I've read this year. It is like a young adult urban mythical type fantasy. So something completely different from what I'd been reading, but so interesting. Like, it really caught my attention. And at first I wasn't too interested in it. Like, I'd say the first half I was still on the fence with it, but the way the second half of the book went definitely like way more captured my interest to the point that I want to finish reading this series. So this is like, it's an urban fantasy, so it is modern day. It's actually set in a college campus in North Carolina, so I just thought that whole environment, first of all, was just like a really cool setting. I love like a collegiate atmosphere following this like old secret society that actually is based on King Arthur, because King Arthur was real and his knights are real, and like there's magic and they fight demons, and it's kind of like that type of story. And our main character girl just kind of gets like accidentally thrown into it, and she can do things that are not really well explained. But this book also took a turn with like not just King Arthur stuff, but there's also like another folklore type of magic that she herself is a part of that pulled into the King Arthur legend as well. So there were different facets of magic in this and different explanations of magic in this world, different people who use different types of magic. So I like how there were different viewpoints of it. Like, I thought it was very interesting to read about, and that's probably what I liked more than if it was just all like the King Arthur kind of style. There's some corruption happening within this secret society, and she's kind of like the big outcast, but she is like set to figure things out, you know, and I just thought it was really interesting. Definitely am gonna read more of this in the future. And I am so conflicted on the love interest section of this story. Like, that is a main reason why I really want to read the next books in the series, because I need to see happen what my heart wants to happen. So enjoyed that one for sure. I read such an interesting variety in the last month of December here. Then I read Nevermore: The Trials of Morgan Crow. This is a middle grade fantasy, a genre I've never read. Like, I don't know, I guess Harry Potter is middle grade fantasy, but I do not read middle grade at all. But I've heard this one is really good, especially I heard it mentioned in a lot of like winter recommendations, and I definitely had wanted to read this series for so long, and the 3rd book just came out, so like it's kind of all everywhere again. So I decided to start the series. So it's following an 11-year-old girl, because like I said, this is middle grade, and she is supposed to die on her 12th birthday things don't really happen that way. She kind of gets pulled to this whole other world she didn't know existed, and she has been told her whole life she is unlucky. Like, everything bad that happened in the world she lived in was blamed on Morgan because she is the unlucky child. Didn't make any sense, but that's just kind of like the feel of this book. And so she's pulled into this world where she actually has some friends and she's accepted, and there's magic and just like very interesting creatures and characters. And I can definitely see why people compare this to Harry Potter. There is definitely a whimsicality to this story that was very endearing, and it wasn't like for sure my favorite book by far, but it's definitely one that I will for sure be finishing the series because I have to know what happens next. And also it just is a nice story, and it was like innocent in some ways, but even though it's middle grade, I feel like it still had like some darker themes to it for sure. And I just found it was good. Would recommend if you haven't read this one yet. And the next two are actually in a series. So I finally ended up reading The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is about this kind of, how do I say it, preppy girl named Calla who lives in Toronto, and she's been estranged from her father since she was a baby when her mother left her father, because her father lives in Alaska and kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it's just not the lifestyle her mother wanted. So over the years, Calla and her father just like stopped talking to each other on the phone, and they just hadn't talked to each other at all. Well, she gets an email from a close friend of her father's to say, you need to come see your father. Like, he's sick and you just really need to come see him now. So she packs up her bags, plans on just going there for a week to kind of get to know the guy, like see where he's lived, like reconnect with him. So she travels to Alaska, and she is definitely not a good fit for Alaska. She is very like, I don't want to say she's a diva, that's not the word I want to think of, but she has like a lot of spare income because she was living at home with her mom and working. She's like 26, I think, and so she spent a lot of her money on more like frivolous things like clothes and makeup and things like that. And she runs a fashion blog with her best friend, and then she's thrown into this very, very rural Alaskan setting where like nobody wears makeup or does their hair or wears clothes that aren't just for functional purposes. So she definitely sticks out. And her father's next door neighbor, and also like his best pilot, because her father runs a plane company, is this very grumpy man that she terms the Yeti, and they have a very hateful relationship towards each other because Cal kind of stands for everything that Jonah, the Yeti, does not like at all. And so you just see that kind of wither away as the story goes on. Really ended up liking this one. I don't know if I liked it as much as like the hype around it led me to believe I would like it. I gave it 4 stars, but it didn't completely blow me away, but I still really enjoyed it. The second one, Wild at Heart, I liked even more. I gave it 4.5 stars. So it's following the same characters from The Simple Wild, so I can't really say like what happens in the second one because it is a sequel. But if you are like me and you read The Simple Wild and you just thought it was like a fairly decent romance, but it didn't absolutely blow you away, read the second book because I loved it. I just especially loved learning about Alaska, and I feel like the second book wasn't as much focused on the romance. Like, yes, it was a romance novel, but it was a different element of romance, and it really was like about Calla trying to fit in with this new environment and these new friendships that she developed along the way. And I love like the curmudgeonly old main character in Wild at Heart. There were so many like elements outside of the romance in the second book that I just really loved and made me love the story that much more. So that's actually gonna wrap up my last recent reads video. As usual, if you read any of these, I'd love to chat about them below, but thank you so much for watching and happy reading.